Hello and welcome to a special episode on Al-Quds International Day. I'm your host, Hasan Youness. The last Friday of the Muslim holy month of Ramadan is marked as Al-Quds International Day. Commemorating Al-Quds Day is considered a fulfillment of a political and religious obligation, especially at the time, place and occasion have distinctive historical, ideological, political and spiritual particularities. What adds particularity to this day is that it is a symbol of oppression, and as a result, it gains the sympathy of non-Muslims due to the humanitarian aspects and all the values that this cause represents. What is the particularity of Al-Quds Day this year? Especially that it coincides with the US-sponsored talks between Israel and the Palestinian group and the unrest in the Arab world. To probe insights about this question, among many others, I'm glad to be joined with a link from London with Mr. Nazim Ali, who is a researcher at IHRC, and from the studio from Beirut, we will be having Dr. Ibrahim Mossawee, who is assistant professor in media and politics at the Lebanese University. And we'll be joined later with a phone intervention with Sheikh Hasan Youness, who is a university professor as well. And we'll have a final intervention with Ms. Zainab Said Ali, who is a youth activist. Before starting our discussion, I'd like to start with a report which sheds light on Al-Quds International Day, and we'll be back.
In August of 1979, the late founder of the Islamic Republic, Ayatollah Ruhollah Khomeini, declared the last Friday of the Muslim holy month of Ramadan as Al-Quds International Day, calling on Muslims to mark the annual occasion by holding street rallies. Muslims in the Islamic Republic of Iran and 80 other countries take to the streets on the Quds Jerusalem Day to voice their support for the Palestinians' assured rights. As the holy month of Ramadan revives, the spirit of unity and brotherhood among Muslims and the Muslim world lives an example of what the poor and needy suffer. Through experiencing fasting throughout this holy month, they tend to become united for the cause of the oppressed. Hence, the peak of spiritual recognition in this aspect becomes more apparent towards the latter part of Ramadan, which justifies the timing of Al-Quds Day. Therefore, commemorating Al-Quds Day is considered a fulfillment of a political and religious obligation, especially that the time, place, and occasion have distinctive historical, ideological, political, and spiritual particularities. Today is the day in which Muslims recall the sacred land Al-Quds, Baytul Maqdis, Jerusalem, the Muslims' first Qibla, the first place toward which Muslims turned in prayer before Mecca. What adds particularity to this day is that it is a symbol of oppression, and as a result, it gains the sympathy of non-Muslims due to the humanitarian aspects and all the values that this cause represents, in addition to the assault practiced against sanctities of other religions and faiths. Millions of people around the world take to the streets on this day to show their support for the people of Palestine and to call for an end to the Israeli occupation of Palestinian lands. Al-Quds Day this year coincides with the US-sponsored talks between Israel and a Palestinian group, in which the negotiations, according to many commentators, aim at ensuring the Tel Aviv regime's safety. These talks kicked off on the 29th of July in Washington to highlight the future of Israeli settlements in the occupied West Bank, the status of Al-Quds, or Jerusalem, and the fate of the Palestinian refugees. While these talks take place, Palestinians evoke the suffering and pains, the pain of captivity and homelessness, the continuing pains of hunger, murder, and slaughter. This year, Al-Quds International Day comes as a reminder of the holy city and billions of believers, and the suffering inflicted upon them against a backdrop of forgetfulness and disregard by some Arab and Muslim countries.
Hello again to this special episode on Al-Quds International Day. I'd like to start with our guest from London, Mr. Nazim Ali, who is a researcher at IHRC. Hello, Mr. Nazim. Can you hear me clearly? Yeah.
I can hear you very
in
well.
fact,
Thank you so much for having me.
At 3 p.m. London time, London has witnessed an annual march in commemoration of Al-Quds International Day. This rally or march has been characterized by the participation of people from different nationalities, different religions, and different backgrounds. What are your comments regarding this march?
Well, the march, as you've just mentioned, is reflective of the different nationalities present in England, present in the United Kingdom. I've just come back from the demonstration, which has just ended, and a successful one it was. We had black people, we have white people, we have people who are Muslims, we have people who are Christians, we have Jewish people there, we have people of no faith there, we have women with hijab, we have women with no hijab, we have men with beards, men without beards. It is a complete collection of people who are actually opposed to injustice, people who love peace, people who love justice, but opposed to injustice, opposed to apartheid. And it reflects the community we live in England. You know, there were people who spoke with posh English accents. There were people who come from the working class. There are students. There were academics. There were religious scholars. There were rabbis. We have the full diaspora of the types of people present in England. It's a rainbow. It was a
mosaic, actually, with people from different backgrounds, as you've just mentioned. Is the Quds itself the trigger for such gathering, or the symbolism of Al-Quds was the main trigger?
I think yes. I'm not stretching the truth by any imagination if I was to say it is the trigger. You see, the last Friday of every month of Ramadan is significant for this. Al-Quds has become synonymous with people who fight against injustice, people who stand up for the oppressed. And when you have such a call, based on the principle it's founded on, as you said in your news report, on ideological principles, social principles, political principles, then it brings people from different forms, different backgrounds together. It is a uniting force. And the people who don't come, and the people who choose not to come, for whatever their political reasons, is because they don't believe in this narrative. They have a different narrative. And that narrative is one of destruction, one of implosion, and not one of unity, and not one of bringing the world together on this issue.
Dr. Ibrahim Mossawee, hello again to this special episode. In fact, the Quds Day was announced in the year 1979. 1979, 2013. Does the Quds International Day still gain the same momentum, the same significance in your opinion?
Well, first of all, let me say hello to you and to all the viewers. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. When we talk about the significance of Jerusalem Day or Al-Quds Day that has been announced or declared by Imam Khomeini, we believe that Imam Khomeini wanted to send a very strong message, a very clear message to the Ummah, to all of the Muslims, to all of the Arabs, and to all those who believe in the message of freedom against oppression. Because it is a cause, a very sublime cause, a very august cause, because it's about people and religion, because it's about sanctities, because it's about danger, then the logical thing is that when you have more danger engulfing the region, engulfing the cause, engulfing the Ummah, then you should signify yourself or elevate the level of your readiness into a higher stage. That's why I believe the Al-Quds Day is being significant more and more day after day and year after year. Why? Because the kind of conspiracy, because the kind of execution of the plots by the Israelis supported by the American hegemony is getting worse and worse day and after day. We know very well, if we are going to make statistics, just to make a very simple comparison between this year and last year, we will see there is a wide and a huge difference in the amount of settlers coming, in the number of settlements that has been implanted in the Palestinian lands, the Judaization of the different landmarks, Palestinian landmarks, whether Christian or Muslim, is going on a very large space. That's why I believe, yes, when we talk about Al-Quds Day nowadays, this year, this day, then we are talking, or we should be talking with a great significance. We should highlight the occasion. We should be very aware that we don't have much time to lose in order to bring all the people together to rally as much support as we can behind the cause of the Quds, because I mean the Judaization of the sacred city and the taking and the reaping of the rights of the people there is happening by the tick of the hour and the second.
Dr. Mossawee, what's the particularity of Al-Quds Day this year?
Well, of course, I mean, when we talk about the particularity of Quds Day in this year, it's very important because we know very well it's not only this year. We can talk about the days because
maybe this year because it's coinciding with the U.S.-sponsored talks.
Because this is what I was going to say. We don't talk about year. We talk about by day because the kind of conspiracy that is taking place now. We have the resumption of the talks between the official side, the Palestinians, the Palestinian Authority at one side, and the Israelis with the quote-unquote sponsorship of the Americans. We know that the Americans can never be brokers, can never be an honest broker to help bring the Palestinians and the Israelis together. We have to know very well that all the red lines that the Israelis has marked or has put, the Americans are going to abide by and to comply with. That's why I believe it's very problematic to talk about any kind of negotiations while the Israelis are continuing their plans of settlement and their Judaization plans as is. So it's very significant this year. It's very significant this day actually because we've been witnessing another session of discussions and negotiations taking place. And I believe that it's a pity that the Palestinians have already rocked the bottom in the last or the recent negotiations, and they still, part of them continue to pin hopes on the negotiations. I believe the only way that the Palestinians can regain their rights back is to depend on themselves, not to believe or trust the Americans or even the European brokers. They have to depend on themselves and they have to resort to the resistance. The resistance has been able and has been successful to defeat the enemy, to defend the people, and to take back some of the rights. The Palestinians themselves have tried the negotiation track for more than 23 years. And what did they yield out of it? We all know it was more losses of the land. The Israelis are taking the upper hand. And if they continue to do this, I'm afraid that they will not have anything to lose. I mean, because
Dr.
everything will be taken away.
I'd like to take Mr. Ali's insights regarding this question. Do you think, Mr. Ali from London, that this year has its own particularity regarding the commemoration of Al-Quds International Day?
I think it does. I mean, as the professor so rightly said, we're in a situation where the so-called peace talks are being brokered by a country which has no credibility whatsoever, zero credibility. And unfortunately, again, some of the Palestinians are going down that route. So therefore, when you look at this as a position, where do we position ourselves? Those of us who don't believe that this is the right methodology, or indeed this is the right way to get about justice, where do we align ourselves? And we're limited. We're very limited to what's available. Not only as to what's available, but what is actually in favor of truth, in favor of justice, and in favor of true freedom. And this is where Al-Quds is a defining principle, which is this is based on no compromise with injustice. Absolutely zero compromise. And this is the beauty of it. And this is why it touches the hearts of many people around the world. You talked about London today. I mean, it's happened in America. From all the way from America to Australia, and all the countries in between, an Al-Quds rally happened. Why? Because the narrative that we hear on the news, that we're being brainwashed, that we're being pushed into our faces. In your opinion,
what deprives the U.S. in these negotiations from its credibility, as you've just described? They are trying to put the two parties to a negotiation table, and the Palestinians can exercise their bargaining power and not giving any compromise, so they can arrive maybe to what they seek. So what's your stance regarding that?
Yes, that is the charade which is being played. That is the stage which is being set. And you bring the players on there. You have the Israelis on one side. And then you bring these actors that they've brought on. This is what it is. It's just an act. It's a charade. These people here are not to negotiate for Palestine. They're there to sell Palestine. And they want to see what they can get in return. Let's be frank. You know, this is not a negotiated settlement which is in the process of happening. This is a sellout. And it's how do we sell? This is all they're compromising on. Is how do we sell
is
this?
But is it the U.S. But is it the U.S. fault? And I'm just raising a counter argument to what you're saying. Is it the U.S. fault in this case, or is it the Palestinians' representatives who are not exercising their negotiation power, their bargaining power? Whose fault is it?
I think blame lies in all departments here. The Palestinian leadership, the Americans, and the Israelis. Look, the Americans, if they brought the Palestinians to the table, they brought them with a carrot. What type of carrot is it? You know, it's a carrot and stick system going on. You know, they're damned, to a certain degree, it's like damned if you do, damned if you don't. So it's better to be damned, but live with freedom, no? Live with integrity. But the Palestinian leadership doesn't see it like this. When automatically the Zionists have got the upper hand, when America says openly our ties between Israel and the US are rock solid and nothing can break them. Have they ever said that about the Palestinians? Have they ever said that we support the Palestinian cause and nothing can stop us supporting it? No. So how can they be an honest broker? Are we living with our heads in the sand? I mean, let's get to reality here. We have a so-called broker who is on the side of one completely, to the extent where it funds it, to the extent where the lobbyists the Zionist lobbyists in America are controlling certain departments in the US government. And then we say this is a peace process going on. Mm-hmm. Who are they trying to kid? They may kid a few people in the world, but the vast majority now are awakening, thanks to programs like yours, thanks to the media, the alternative media outlets which are coming. The narrative is not being controlled or is not controllable like it was. There is an alternative narrative.
Okay, my guest from London and my guest from Beirut, we will go with a break, and then we will probe further insights about Al-Quds International Day. A break, and we'll be back.
يابا، شايف هاي الأرض؟ شايفها يابا؟ هاي البلاد، هاي أرض سيدي وسيدك، هاي أرضك، هذا وطنك، هاي أرضنا يلي انحرمنا منها، هاي زيتونتنا اللي بالسهل، هاي زيتونتنا اللي بالسهل، هاي أمك، ما في أغلى من الأم يابا، ما في أغلى من فلسطين يابا.
Hello again to this special episode on Al-Quds International Day, and I'm glad to be joined from Beirut with Sheikh Hasan Youness. Sheikh Hasan Youness, hello. Can you hear me clearly? Sheikh Hasan, it seems that there is a technical problem. We'll solve this technical problem and then we'll go back to Sheikh Hasan Youness. Going back to Beirut as well to Dr. Ibrahim Mossawee. In fact, Dr. Ibrahim, you've talked about certain noble and sacred causes and triggers for Al-Quds International Days. Are the prerequisites for fulfilling these causes being accomplished, being attained or not?
I didn't get your question.
In fact, there are certain, the Al-Quds calls for more unity amongst Muslims. However, nowadays we are witnessing uncertainties and unrest in the Arab world. So for many commentators, this doesn't contribute to fulfilling the causes of Al-Quds Day. Are we in proximity to fulfilling these causes, or are we still distant?
Well, to be frank and to say the truth about this issue that you mentioned, we have to take into consideration that we have to have a real and authentic awareness about the cause of Palestine, about the cause of Al-Quds. You were mentioning, you were discussing with your honorable guest from London, Mr. Ali, who is to blame, the Americans, the Palestinians, the negotiations, why they are not using their bargaining power. I don't know what you were talking about actually, because the problem starts from the principle of accepting to go into a negotiation with an occupying force. Palestinians should have never accepted at any stage to go into a negotiation with an occupying force. If there is an occupation, the occupation should go away. The international community, the international legitimacy, the world powers, the superpowers should come and exercise their pressure on this occupying force to leave. If not, the people of Palestine have the right to defend themselves, have the right to liberate their own country, not to go into negotiations with the Israelis, while the Israelis are being supported by so-called quote-unquote international community. And here we have to remember something. I mean, we have all been brought in such a way to understand that this whole international community is the community of those who have the veto power in the Security Council. Who do they represent? Now we have more than 1,400,000,000 at least, 1,500,000,000 Muslims. Why don't they have the power, the veto power in the Security Council? Why the Muslims do not have a veto power there?
So you are calling for re-representation maybe in the Security Council?
I don't believe in the Security Council. I mean, we don't want to go into that kind of thing. But I'm trying to say, I'm trying to shed light and to tell you this so-called international community is not international community in the first place.
It is biased. It's playing a biased role.
It is represented only for a very special, it is a very reductionism. There is a tendency of reductionism only to represent certain powers that they fall into the same line, which is the line of hegemony against the people who are oppressed. This is one thing. That's why the only thing that you have in hand is to go and to stick to the resistance, to your own basic, natural, religious, legitimate right of fighting against the occupation. Not to go into negotiations. What were
Especially that the negotiations have been proving that they are
What were they negotiating about? The Palestinians, what were they negotiating about for more than 30 years? What were they doing through the 3 decades? They were negotiating upon their own rights. Day after day and year after year, the rights of the Palestinians were diminishing in Palestine in such a way that they would never have anything to negotiate about. So here I want to set a point and to say that the main problem has to do with the approach. The approach is not to go to the negotiation table while you have your own right very clear. You should put the so-called international community, if not the people of the world, into their responsibilities and to try to do something about it. As fulfilling the causes of the Jerusalem and whatever, I want you to know as much, I believe you know, but we have to make it very clear for those who are watching, those who are listening to us, that the problem has to do with the hegemons of the world, with the superpowers, with the United States of America. Yes, they occupied Palestine and they helped Israel to have a tight grip over Palestine. But at the same time, they were attacking other Islamic nations and Arab nations.
So you are talking about the 2 standards which are adopted by the so-called international community.
What did they do in Iraq? What did they do in Afghanistan? What they were doing in Pakistan? What are they doing now in Yemen? The drones that kills 10s and 20 every day. What are they doing? What are they doing in Lebanon? What are they doing now in Syria? See, so the whole nation, the whole ummah is being preoccupied with its own direct
in the presence
concerns.
of the hegemony of the international community, as you've put it. In fact, I'd like to go back to Sheikh Hasan Youness from Beirut. Sheikh Hasan, can you hear me clearly right now?
Yes. Yes, okay. I hear you.
In fact, I'd like to ask you from a personal and from a religious perspective, what does Al-Quds Day mean to you?
First of all, salam for you and for your guests and for those who are watching you. I can say it's an important day for us and for all Arabs and Muslims, and it was an important idea also brought by the great Imam of Islamic Revolution of Iran. And now you may notice that this day became a banner for all people of Arab nation and Islamic nation also. And we want to say in this day that Al-Quds was and is still a private city for Arabs and Muslims, wherever and whatever. And also we can say for Israel now in present time that it wouldn't be able to invade people around. And it wouldn't be able also to live in peace, such she behaved. And also, it couldn't be able also to eliminate our identity or the geography of Palestine, or to change everything in our history, in our Arabic language. Still we are praying in the Al-Aqsa Mosque, and we will go on in this. But we have to say something for Arabs in such a day. First of all, stop fighting. Stop fighting in Syria. Stop fighting in Egypt. For whom you are defending in Iraq against yourself. Muslims should be united and unified under the banner of this day.
Yeah, and that's what this day
yes.
actually calls for.
For many reasons.
Yeah.
This city is a private city for us, and it's a special city in the Islamic legislation, and it's the first qibla for the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, and on his household, and it's our own right. Whatever they did, this right wouldn't change. Al-Quds is ours, and we want to tell all people around what Allah said in the Holy Quran in verse 82 of chapter Al-Ma'idah. Certainly, you will find the most violent of people in enmity for those who believe to be the Jews and those who are polytheists. لَتَجِدَنَّ أَشَدَّ النَّاسَ عَدَاوَةً لِلَّذِينَ آمَنُوا الْيَهُودَ وَالَّذِينَ أَشْرَكُوا. We should believe in this. Nothing changed since 1984, 1948 to the present time. So what we are waiting for, what we are doing, what we are fighting for whom, for what reason, what's going on in Iraq, why we are pushing a lot of Islamic money in Syria, in Iraq, in Yemen, wherever. Go and save this money for Palestine and push weapons for Hamas, and nothing to say with Israel, nothing to negotiate with Israel about. Just she understand by force, and that's all.
So your opinion highly coincides with or correlates with Dr. Mossawee's opinion. Thanks for your religious...
I heard him, and I do agree with him for everything. Israel is absolute evil, and no way to negotiate with them.
In fact, whenever we mention a certain counter-argument, it doesn't mean that we are adopting it, but just for the sake of the dialogue, we are mentioning it. In fact, Sheikh Hasan Youness, I highly thank you for your insights in this episode. Thanks for joining us. Back to London. Mr. Ali, Dr. Mossawee has mentioned a counter-argument. He said that resistance should be the sole name of the game, and we should not go to the negotiation table from the very beginning. What's your insights about that?
I think it's absolutely correct. Absolutely correct. I mean, all I was trying to say when he asked me the question about negotiations was that this is not negotiation. This is actors being brought onto the stage, actors handpicked by the Americans. So this is not, in fact, this is a charade. This is just a play. The only people who have an entitlement to actually talk about Palestine are the ones who are suffering at the moment, who are rotting in jails, who are being subjugated to the oppression and the torture since 1948. So Professor Mossawee is absolutely correct. There is no basis for negotiation. How do you negotiate from this position? And why negotiate with these people? Who are they? I mean, on what basis? Is absolutely right. Look, at the end of the day, the resistance is the only element which has given any type of credence, any type of self-belief, and any type of respect to the Palestinian, to the Arab on the street for that matter. Up until the resistance, where has been the respect for the Arab on the street? None, zero. Since 1996, and before then as well, but specifically since 1996 as well, when Hezbollah showed what true believing people can do, and how you're meant to deal with the Israelis, they showed the way forward. And that is the way forward. You cannot negotiate with people who put a gun to your head and stick a bomb under your chair and then tell you, right, negotiate. You can't do it. The people who've gone to negotiate are nobodies. They're not elected people of Palestine. They're not elected in Gaza, you know. And at the end of the day, Palestine is an issue for all Muslims as well. Not just for a few people with shirts and ties on who happen to have a good lifestyle there. So we have to be very, very clear about it. Look, it seems that everybody jumps onto the bandwagon. When Amir al-Mu'mineen Obama tells people to go do jihad in Syria, everybody rushes to jihad. But those same people have never thrown a single stone at Israel. Not a single stone. And we have to be clear about what's going on here.
Maybe because they are not gaining the sufficient support for doing so. What do you think? Support from the other neighboring countries.
Who hasn't got the support from
you're saying that the Palestinians are not doing enough, even by throwing a stone. Maybe they seek more support.
No, forgive me, no. No, forgive me, you misunderstood me. What I'm trying to say is, those people who've gone to Syria to fight, to do jihad, of their own type of jihad, whatever type of jihad this is, they have never thrown a stone at Israel. They have never supported Palestine.
Yeah.
It's Takfiri, of course. And the Amir al-Mu'mineen is Obama.
Okay. Do you think that the Palestinian resistance is gaining enough support from the other Arab countries?
I think Sheikh Hasan Nasrallah put it very nicely during the war with Israel, when he said, look, we're not asking you to support us, but just stay out of it. You know, we don't need you. We'll do this on our own. I mean, look, people talk about in the West here, we're always told democracy, democracy, and the Palestinians have a right, and blah, blah, blah. Qatar, no democracy. Saudi Arabia, no democracy. Jordan, no democracy.
Bahrain.
Egypt, just destroyed democracy. Bahrain, no democracy. Thank you. What are they talking about? Who are they trying to kid? The world is more cleverer now, you know, and God bless Imam Khomeini Rahmatullah Alayh for his words, how true they are, which he said even before the revolution, about never trust these people. You cannot trust these people.
Yeah,
that is what's going on.
This proves the extent to which he was an avant-gardist and visionary in his perspectives. Yeah, you're talking about Imam Khomeini, and I'm saying that what's happening now proves the extent to which he's considered visionary and avant-gardist in his perspectives. In fact, I'll go back to this discussion right after a break, and we'll be back. Hello again to this special episode. Dr. Mossawee, in his today's speech, Sayyid Hasan Nasrallah has repeatedly referred to the role of Sayyid Khomeini and to his vision, and he assured the role of Shia and that Israel is the sole enemy. And he implied that the enemy of some regional countries is not solely Israel nowadays. What are your comments regarding these points?
Well, yes, I mean, first of all, Sayyid Hasan Nasrallah has expressed his commitment and the commitment of the Shia. It's not only in Lebanon, but all over the world with the Palestinian cause, with Jerusalem, and with the sacred issues of the Ummah everywhere in Palestine. This is one thing. The other thing, when you talk about Imam Khomeini has played a very important, crucial, and pivotal role in raising the awareness of the people about the true issues, about the true causes of the Ummah, the causes that would bring them back into the roots, the causes that would unite them, the causes that would propose a kind of roadmap for them for the future to understand who is the friend, who is the enemy. He tried as much as he can to bring them into a major and a radical shift from where they were, because the people, especially the peoples, they were brainwashed and they were given a completely misleading figure about what's really happening. Some of the countries, some of the regimes, some of the governments, they were introducing to them and proposing enemies that they are not enemies. Actually, they are only enemies because the Americans, because the Westerners, because the hegemons of the world want to depict them as enemies. We were able to see that after the advent of the revolution in the Islamic Revolution in Iran, when it was attacked. Actually, they imposed war against Iran for 80 years by Iraq at the time. So what we really need to talk about now is to raise the awareness of the people. This is the key word actually that we have to stick to and to try to work into it, not only by our conversations, and which is very important, and I'm not trying to underestimate, but also via the alternative media, what has been mentioned by Mr. Ali from London. Yes, really it is very important. This social media, this smart way of communicating with the people, it's not anymore possible for the governments to do it. And now when you asked about that Israel is not solely the enemy, what? Excuse me?
For some Arab nations.
Excuse me?
Yeah.
Excuse me, what? Is this a question? Israel is not the enemy for them.
Oof.
Israel is not the enemy for them. Let us put it very clearly, truthfully. We would love that Israel an enemy for them. But everything that they do, all the budgets that they allocate, all the plans that they make, all the support that they do, they don't care about Palestine. They don't want the Palestinians to liberate themselves. They don't want to support the liberation movement. They don't recognize the resistance as a legitimate way of defending or liberating. Those people, I don't want to say that they are brainwashed. It is worse than that. They are conspirators. They are collaborators. Come on. Even if it's governments or states. Even if they are governments or states, you have a collaborator state. You have a collaborator government. You have a collaborator leader. Yes, they can invent it. It's there everywhere. Otherwise, if it was the other way around, we would have liberated Palestine long time ago.
You're
so
talking,
when you talk about
Dr.
Solely,
Dr. Mossawee, you're talking about a conspiratory role, and Sayyid Hassan Nasrallah has emphasized more than ever before the role of Shia in his today's speech. What was the significance of doing so today?
Well, to tell you the truth, my understanding is that Sayyid Nasrallah was not trying to highlight the Shia as a cult or as a community, as a confession, as a madhab per se. This was not the goal behind it. But now, because there is this outrage, because of this trying, these attempts, these fierce attempts, these heightened attempts to plant a wedge among the Muslim Ummah, among the Sunnis and the Shiites, he was trying to tell all the Muslims all over the world, all the friends all over the world, all the enemies all over the world, that the Shiites are committed to Palestine no matter what. This is what he was trying to say, and not only to signify the Shiites as Shiites.
What's the particularity of having appeared in person?
I'll tell you what.
Yeah.
The particularity and the significance of Sayyid Nasrallah's appearance in person, we know very well. He appeared once in person when there was a conspiracy against the Prophet, when they were trying to profane the sacredness of the Prophet. Then he appeared in person in the commemoration of the martyrdom of Imam Hussein. Now he appeared in person in the commemoration of Jerusalem. This means that Sayyid Nasrallah has put the sacredness of the Palestinian cause on equal footing with the Prophet and with the Imam. This would tell you how genuine, sincere, authentic, straightforward the commitment with Palestine. And I believe this is something that should be understood by the Palestinians, by the people, by all those who have high culture, by ordinary lay people, that the commitment by Sayyid Nasrallah, the commitment by Hezbollah, the commitment by the Shiites, and the commitment that should be by all the Muslims, by all the Arabs, by all the nationals, by all the human beings, should be this way. It should be put in a high top priority that could be equal to the most sacred thing into your system of values and ethics.
I think that the picture has spoken for itself actually, and it was very apparent. I'd like to have a phone call with Ms. Zainab Said Ali, who is a youth activist. Hello, Ms. Zainab, can you hear me clearly?
Hello, Dr. Hassan.
Hello.
Okay, I want to say that today's generation must care, and they are indeed caring for the cause of Al-Quds Now more
Ms.
than
Zainab
ever,
has started directly her intervention. Go ahead, without even asking. You're so enthusiastic today. Go ahead.
I'm hearing what they are saying. So
yeah, sure. Go ahead.
Topic. Okay. Now more than ever, they are carrying our generation because of the happening in Palestine and in Al-Quds in specific. Namely, the geographical, the demographic culture changes that Israel is doing on the land, which is the Judaization. I want to say in our university, we are creating events like conferences, expositions that pertain to Al-Quds, so as to awaken the students.
And I'd like to mention that your role is in a university which has around 22,000 students.
Yes.
So you have a representative sample of the Lebanese youth. That's why the choice was you to have your intervention in this episode. So please go ahead.
Okay. Yes, we always we try to make events for Al-Quds, like as I said, conferences, expositions, so as to awaken the students, especially the new students, to the crime committed by the Zionist enemy against Palestine, so that Palestine would remain the focus of their awareness.
And is it still of that concern? Is the Palestinian cause still of high concern for the Lebanese youth in particular?
Yes, it is. No, it is, but the main problem today we are really facing is the sectarian strife that hegemonic powers are trying to create among our generations. So as to keep their mind away from the main causes, especially the Al-Quds. There are many problems, but they are still concerned.
In fact, Ms. Zainab, in the face of this hegemonic power, your role becomes of more significance. Thanks for joining us from Beirut.
Thank you.
Going back to London, to Mr. Ali. Mr. Ali, how is Al-Quds Day perceived from a Westerner perspective?
Well, it depends what you mean by Westerner's perspective. I was born and brought up here, so maybe I'm classed as a Westerner.
Being in contact with people from
depending
Europe,
where you sit.
Yeah. I mean that being in contact with people from Europe, from many Western countries, how do they perceive Al-Quds cause and Al-Quds Day?
No different than to the way the sister just spoken from Beirut. No difference to the way the professor spoken it. People can see the terrorism which is inflicted on the Palestinians on a daily basis. People can see the theft that was done of this land, the misappropriation of this land which was done deliberately. People can see this. This is very clear. This is very black and white. And I go back to what London is a classic example of the way the West is. We have people from different cultures, nationalities, different diasporas there. And you know, when you get rabbis speaking against Israel, when you get Jews against Zionism, when you get Sunnis, when you get Shi'i, when you get a full range of people, this is what Al-Quds means. It's a unifying platform. People enjoy to come here. People travel here. You know, all the way from Scotland down to London just for a few hours. Just for a few hours. This isn't a 2-day event or a 3-day event. This is just for a few hours, 3-4 hours. Because Al-Quds is part of our belief. And as the professor so beautifully put it, and interpreted Hasan Nasrullah's position on this, that is as important as the honor of the Prophet, peace be upon him, and the honor of the Imams for the Shia, and for the Sunni brothers as well. It is just as honorific, the issue of Quds. Yes, there has been issues, there has been problems, as the sisters alluded to. The Takfiri mentality is being supported, being bankrolled by these same Arab governments who some people still think they will do something for Palestine. It's crazy. We're living in a world which is going cuckoo in the head. It's like one flew over the cuckoo's nest with all the Arab leaders in there. We have to maintain our unity, we have to be strong, and we have to ensure that we do not leave this line as the professor put it, of resistance. this line of justice and peace, and you will find it will gravitate everybody around it. It is a magnetism of attraction. Slowly, slowly, people are coming. People who are not even Muslims, people who didn't know about Palestine. I met some Muslim brothers today who'd never been on a demonstration for Palestine in their lives, but Al-Quds made them come. There is an attraction, there's a truth in this. There is a honesty factor value in this, which is not visible in any other event regarding Palestine. And that's why it's a magnetism for the whole of the Western Muslims and non-Muslims who believe in this cause.
In fact, you've said that we have to maintain our unity. However, the incidents and the unrest, the uncertainties in the Arab world reveal that the unity is not there. There is a lot of unrest and there are lots of conflicts in many Arab countries. So do you think that we are alienating from fulfilling or attaining the ultimate purpose of Al-Quds International Day?
Look, at the end of the day, when we speak about Al-Quds, it is not just the seats or thrones in Israel which are shaking. It is the seats and thrones in Saudi Arabia which shake. It is the seats and thrones in Bahrain which shake. It is the seats and thrones in all these other so-called democracies which are shaking. This is the power of Al-Quds. Don't underestimate the power or underestimate the power of Al-Quds. It is a defining movement. It is not like just another demonstration. Never think of it as just another demonstration. It is not. It puts, in English we have a saying, it puts the cats amongst the pigeons. Okay? So this is why in Pakistan today, in Al-Quds, people were shooting on it. There was a bus taking people there. They shot at it, the demonstration getting stoned, and so on and so forth. Why? Because this is a defining moment. This is a defining act to come and stand on Al-Quds, because it is a unifying factor. And the Arab governments, Arab states don't want it. So Al-Quds is doing its job. We have to make sure we are honest to Al-Quds. Al-Quds is there. Imam Khomeini, God bless his soul, has shown us something, has given us a gift. It is our job to ensure we look after this gift, we cherish it, and we share it. It is not just for the Shi'i or just for the Palestinians. It is for the global masses of all denominations and races.
Dr. Mossawee, in fact, many of us are highly optimistic regarding the liberation of Al-Quds and the liberation of Palestine. However, as I've said, there is lack of unity amongst the Arab nations. Does this contribute to diminishing our optimism? Kindly, in a minute, I'd like to have you reply.
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. Let me assure you and assure everybody who believes in the cause of Jerusalem and Quds and the liberation of Quds and Jerusalem. Look, I mean, the history and the events, the circumstances, they would only make this kind of isolation for the good ones and the bad ones. Whenever you go into a kind of examination, if this hegemonic powers are going to exercise more pressure than those who really believe, the genuine, the good ones, the true believers of Jerusalem and liberation, they are going to stick to their principle, and they are going to fight till the last drop of their blood, to the last breath that they want to lose. So I believe, I mean, if we have this unity among the Arabs and the Muslims, this should not like affect us negatively. We should know very well that it is the war and the battle on Jerusalem to liberate Palestine is not only a military war, it's a cultural, it's a civilizational, it's awareness war. That's why we should count on the children and the students, on the youngsters, on the activists, on the mothers and the fathers and the generations and the schools and the universities and the alternative media and the professors. It's all full-fledged activity that should collaborate together, and I believe the good ones are going to convert together in order to help support the cause of the liberation of Jerusalem. We should have more persistent and more assured conviction, deep conviction, unshakable conviction, and elevating other transcendental ascending optimism that we are going to liberate Palestine. It's a matter of time only.
On this optimism, I'd like to highly thank you, Dr. Ibrahim Mossawee, an assistant professor in media and politics at the Lebanese University. And I highly thank Mr. Ali, who is a researcher at IHRC, for his deep insights. I'd like to thank also Sheikh Hasan Youness, who is a university professor, and Ms. Zainab Sayyid Ali, who is a youth activist. In fact, in August 1979, the founder of the Islamic Republic, Ayatollah Ruhollah al-Khomeini, declared the last Friday of the Muslim holy month as Al-Quds International Day, hoping that the prerequisites for achieving the ultimate purpose of this day be fulfilled. I'd like to thank our viewers for having watched this episode, and I'd like to ask you to stay tuned to Al-Etijah English TV channel. Thanks for watching us.